Alright, hello and welcome. So today we'll look at some basic data types in Python. In this case, we are going to only stick to the basic ones in this video. There are a bunch of other ones like lists and tuples and dictionaries, but I want to make dedicated videos for those. So let's just focus on the very simple ones for now. So I have just an example here, and this is print hello world. And if you run this, you can see it says hello world. But what's the data type here? How do you identify this hello world sentence? And that's what the data type is basically. It's the way you classify a type of data. So in our case, we have a sentence. It's text. It's words. So actually, there's a convenient function in Python. So if you can actually do this, it's type functions. It's inbuilt into Python. So if you just do type, and if you type around whatever your want to print or show, if you run this again, you can see instead of printing out hello world, it actually prints this class and then str. And this str stands for string, and the class implies it's data type string, or it belongs in the class string. So basically, you can just type in any data type or any data to see what the data type is. And data types indeed are how we classify things. So what kinds of data are we looking at? In this case, you're looking at a string. You're looking at a sentence. A string of characters, and that makes a string, of course. And that's how data types work. They basically define a kind of data because there's different ways in which different data types will want to interact. For instance, strings might want to, these are going to be text. So if you add these strings, they just add, the text to the end of the other text. But if you add integers, for example, integers are numbers, those add the numbers together. So data types are important so that Python can know how to actually handle that data type, how to interact with it, how to perform operations on it. And that's where data types come in. It just determines what data is, what kind of data is, what the data does, basically. And of course, we can also print some other things. So if you want to, let's say, print type, and then let's say you want to say it's 2, you can see this is going to be an integer. So you can see the first one is string, this one, but then you can also see the second one is int, so integer, this one. But there's much more of them as well. So let's focus on numbers for now. So let's say you want to add decimals into it, because of course, not every number is going to be a whole number or an integer. So let's say I want to say 3.1. Now, this is not going to be integer. It's going to be something called float, as you can see here. Now, what is float? Float is basically simply a decimal number. That's basically what a float is. It's a data type for decimal numbers, and we call them floats. This is the same across multiple different languages. I mean, in some you might have other types of decimals as well, but in case of Python, it's a float for decimals. So any decimal number is a float. Keep it in mind. Now you could do, let's say, print, you know, we could do something like this. You can see that here prints at the 4.4, which float. But let's say you want to print this out as an integer. By the way, you can do this also. You can add like int or as int around it and make it an integer. And now you can see it actually converts down to 4. So you can actually convert floats to integers, but it will of course make it a whole number and round it. It will round it down actually every time. It will round it to whatever the first letter is here. So it'll always make it whatever this first one is. So if you want to make this like 3.2.6 and 2.3, it'll probably round to 5 mathematically. But we still round to 4 in integer because integer simply takes the first number and ignores everything else. So that's how integers work. Now I'll go down on that editing thing, but if you want to, there's one more tape I want to cover, and this is called Boolean. So it's true or false, basically. If you type in, you can see it's called Boolean in this case, but it stands for Boolean. And it's always true or false. So this hasn't come up yet, but when you're going to be dealing with something like while loops, Booleans are going to be very relevant. They are going to be what you're going to be using mostly, and what those while loops are going to be based on. And basically, a Boolean is just true or false. It's, is it true or is it false? And of course, you can also consider binary, like 0 and 1, but it's basically just is something true or false. That's a Boolean. So that's the basic data types. Of course, there's more of them, but as I said, I want to make dedicated videos for those. These are the very basic ones. These are the ones you're going to be, using the most, probably, because these are what you're going to be basing everything on at this basic level. So just something worth mentioning, I think. Now, moving down from here, we're going to look more at what I showed earlier. So, you can convert things to integer like this. So, if I want to convert 2.5 to integer, it's going to convert on 2 because it's going to be integer. So it's going to only take this 2 here. Similarly, we could, let's do it this way. Let's print out the type. And if you do 2 with the quotation marks around it, that's actually a string. But actually what we can do here is make it into an integer. So we can do this, and then we can add another one of those. And now it's actually an integer. So actually it will end up being an integer too. So you can convert numbers in strings to integers, and similarly, you can convert a numbers to strings and so on. And of course, we can also do this way. So if you want to convert, let's say you want to convert instead, we want to convert this integer. Actually, let's remove the string part. We can do that. You can see it's now an integer. But what if you add the string here? And now it will actually give a string with value of 2. So you can see now it's string. So you can convert values between these data types, assuming they're valid for the other data type. For instance, if you want to convert int, and then you want to do you can see it gives an integer because it's not valid. You can't put this an integer. There's no numbers here. So it needs to be like it needs to be like a number value for it to not actually be counted as an integer. In this case, doing this doesn't help either because it's look at the entire thing. Floats you can convert to integers although losing the decimals, but strings you cannot unless they are valid for an integer. So the value needs to be valid for the other type if you're going to count it. Also, you can do this. So you can do float, and then you can do 2. Now, as you might expect here, it's going to be a float. But what if you take type away? It's not going to print out 2. It's going to print out 2.0 because that's how floats work. It always has 0 at the end. So if you ever convert integer to float, you will see that it actually prints out as a decimal number like this with the 0 with the point something. So even if it takes a number, it will still print out 2.0. So that's something interesting about floats, and something that's worth noting. And it's either where you might want to convert them to integers, for your output if you want to show off a whole number. But besides that, not really much more than that. But floats do always have these decimals at the end of them. So that's that. I hope that's clear enough. If there's some questions, feel free to leave a comment down below.